from some factory in China, like the same factory in China, and the same spoons that they're selling in Canada at the dollar store here.
Would you say that Poland is becoming more Eurocentric nowadays?
Okay, do you know that song by Ramstein? We're all living in America.
Rammstein, we are living in
Yeah,
America.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We're all
man.
living in America. Yeah, yeah. That's how I feel like whenever I go somewhere now. I'm just in America everywhere. Like I was in Sweden a few months ago to visit somebody, and like I'm in America. I go all the
McDonald's
time.
everywhere and
Yeah.
KFC and Starbucks.
It's just like this generic music, generic programming, TV programming, generic movies, generic corporate like food, everything. I go to the store here, I see the same like dollar store uh, spoons that they're selling in Canada from some factory in China, like the same factory in China, and the same spoons that they're selling in Canada at the dollar store here.
Would you say that Poland is becoming more Eurocentric nowadays? Even more than American, like, but especially, is it the heart of the European Union now?
I don't know. I'm out here. Honestly, I don't even pay attention to a lot of things like that are going on in the country. I'm not really well versed in a lot of the things going on here. My just impression of things is like, yeah, it's really Americanized, but it seems like, oh, because I used to preach about like the dangers of Americanization whenever I came here, and that was not so well received like for many years. But nowadays, people tell me the same things from time to time that I used to say. So I feel like people they're more skeptical than they used to be of westernization because I think they've gotten a taste of it. And I used to say like, listen, you don't want like, you don't want Babylon. Basically, you don't want that. It's not like I get it. Like I get why people were like that, but they didn't hear what I was saying growing up there, having had the experience of it. And now I think I've met quite a few people. They're a lot more skeptical, and especially I'm out in the country. Like these are old generations of people that came from like peasants and stuff. They've always been a little more skeptical of the government. Like they were never really treated well by any government here.
Mhm. You know what? It's funny that you say that because I'm always the same way. I keep telling people over there in Ukraine and that like, trust me, man, I grew up here. Like, just believe me, man. And they, for a lot of years, they all thought it was ha ha he he, until I think a lot of people realized that our children are now being targeted. you know um with all these LGBTQ whatever movements and transsexuals, transformers, whatever you want to call it, man. I always make a joke, man. I say transformers. Like, with all these different movements, people are realizing that now our children are being targeted. And I think a lot of the especially conservative people in Europe are waking up to like this idea, like, holy crap, the worst side of America is really making its way, over here, man.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it seems like we've had a little bit of a common experience with that. Yeah, like it's interesting because even people here who, like, let's say they're not conservative or whatever that means, but like let's say they're not, when people generally say conservative or like right wing or something, like they don't read those right wing newspapers, they don't watch those conservative TV shows, they're not into that. Let's say they're more even like communist or socialist, they still are so, like there's still this background of culture here where those things that in America, people on the left do, or like socialists in America do, socialists here find that like kind of they're not into that, so
Mhm.
even some of those people, like they're not necessarily very pro like sexualization of children or something like that, they're still a little skeptical of some of these things. I've
I
seen
was
a few
talk
things.
I wasn't, sorry for interrupting you. I wasn't even talking about like, political spectrums. I'm more of talking about the traditional values that people are now witnessing being attacked. The core and the foundation of what is a family, a core foundation of what sexuality is, and like all these different things. People are now realizing like, holy crap, these things are really being attacked. I think a lot of people are realizing that this whole American liberal movement never had a end game. You know what I mean? Like there was never a goal in it, and that's why it has failed us in a way. Do you understand?
So the what movement? I didn't catch that part. The
Like the whole liberal quote unquote movement that was always so big in America, you know um has failed us because it never had a end game. It never had a goal at the end of the road, like. So I don't know if you, but basically, my point is a lot of people are realizing that the traditional values are being attacked, and it's way more serious than any, political spectrum, man.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying. So you're saying like conservative in the sense of like cultural norms and old traditions, like family based, family stuff. Okay, because like in Canada, often when people say conservative, there's a conservative party and a liberal party. Those are like the blue and the red of Canada. Those are the two
Yes,
main parties.
it's the
So it's
same
like
in America.
analogous to the American Democrat and Republican. So basically,
It's the same in America, man. It's the same exact thing that
similar.
you're talking about. Yeah, go ahead. Wanted to say something.
Yeah. So like so sometimes when someone says conservative, like I think of political conservatism because that's in Canada often what people mean. But you're saying so like conservative in the sense of like culturally. Yeah. I get what you're saying. So I see that too. I think like those it's the same thing. Like people here, at least in this part where I'm from, like there's still more family. The families are tighter knit. The people, like in terms of how, let's say, couples come together, it's still more. How do I put this? Like there's still some courting involved. There's a bit of tradition. Like there's still some honor involved with like families. You don't just like date someone, have sex, and that, you know what I mean. That's
Yep.
at least if you're trying to do it, like the traditional way and stuff like that. And a lot of people are like that here, and so they just have no concept of, like, for instance, and this isn't to disparage people who consider themselves transsexual or anything, but
Exactly.
like people here have like no concept of that. It's like zero. It's completely irrelevant to most people here, or even like LGBT. Really, it's basically like it's unheard of out here, really.
Mhm.
Like, and I would say it's even quite dangerous to be LGBT out here.
Mhm.
So it's
Yeah.
it's it's not even relevant like to the culture hardly, so that people see that stuff here and they're like, what, it's like some a space alien stuff to them. They're just like, this is what is happening, like what is this, did this, like where did this stuff come from? And it's
come
like
from.
it came, this I these some of these ideas, for better or worse or whatever, like they did come from the Western influence.
Yeah. I'm glad that you didn't pass judgment on it, because I always say the same thing. I think the biggest problem with Americanization, if you will, of the world is this idea that this is the right way. While I always say, like, look, different countries and different cultures are different for a reason. This is the way that they have developed for X amount of years, and we shouldn't infringe on that. Like, yeah, technologically we're evolving, but the idea of Americanization is to say that, look, this is the right way and this is what you have to do. And I think now we're seeing a big, backdraw of this throughout the world, where people are saying, well, no, we are different, we do want to preserve our culture, like, thank you for the iPhone, but we are different, and there's a reason why we are different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
And it's never, and I always say this, it's never to say, like you just said, it's never
yeah.
to say
It's
that you're worst and I'm better. Like, we're not trying to say this, that someone is better or someone is worse. It's just that we should, I think, embrace our differences, man.
Yeah, and there's also the issue of like things that are imposed. Like it's one thing if people like consciously start to, let's say there's certain elements of another culture that the people like and they seep into your culture, like let's say there's some things that
Organically.
Americans do, and yeah, and people exactly, they organically adopt those things. And then there's a difference between that and like social engineering, where there's like programs and agendas and institutions that are intentionally trying to manipulate the culture, for a reason, which in my opinion it's like colonialism or imperialism. They're trying to do it, it's like they're trying to assimilate these other cultures into the American, or the kind of, I don't even know what to call it, like the American Western cultural blob,
Mhm. I think always, the biggest example, like the way I found out about this is because I was born and raised in Ukraine. And when you travel either to Europe, I always mean like Western Europe. I don't even consider, because to me, Poland is closer to like Slavic culture. So when you travel to, let's say, Western Europe or America, you quickly find out that we are, in fact, different, and I think, I think it's beautiful that the world is different. I think it's beautiful that, you know Arabic cultures have their own thing, and then Slavic people have their own thing. And I just hate, I hate what, like, personally, what you just said, that there is this, uh like, a social engineering that is happening now, in order to that, with the hidden agenda, in order to kind of bend everyone towards what they want us to be.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure, like, I think you would agree, if like you could say the same thing that's going on in like the Middle East. It's happening in Southeast Asia. It's happening all over the world. There's just this like program. It's like, again, it's like I keep thinking about that song, the Rammstein song. And if you watch the music video, like he's showing you all these different places, like like he goes to like a Buddhist temple, right? And they're
Hmm.
eating like hamburgers.
Yeah. What's interesting is that song is pretty old, man. I think that song came out in like '06 or '07. It's like a prophetic song. I don't think they even realized at the time of how impactful and true that song is going to be one day.
Yeah, and I find it funny too that it's not even like it's not even an English, language band that made the song, and I like that. I
Yeah, it's
like this. And
crazy.
for me, go ahead.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for me, the song it like encompasses this whole topic for me like perfectly. That song.
It's like they seen something, you know. I wanted to ask you, do you know the situation with the migrants from Ukraine and Poland? Are you hearing anything? Are there rumors? Do you maybe see migrants around? Like, what's going on with that?
Um, very like little, not much. There's a few. Like there's occasionally I hear some Ukrainian, uh, and occasionally I hear some English, and usually it's pretty rare. Um, this is kind of. I mean, it's just like a village area, so I don't think people are going to be stopping by here or anything. Like, they're just going to, anyone who's trying to get through somewhere else, they're not going to be stopping here really. So I haven't really noticed anything like that. I haven't heard about anything like that. I don't really know much about it.
Hey, Tomek.